For a little bit, he made it right back to this tree. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Hope you guys have been liking the coon hunting content. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining up and subscribing. I really appreciate it. We got Cashman there. He is still pretty much a green dog. Cashman's only been in the woods with another dog one time, and that was another pup that was even greener than him. Outside of that, Cashman has been a complete solo hound. He's only been hunted by myself. I've basically trained and hunted Cashman solely by myself and with him, and got him to where he's going. He's doing great. He's coming right along through the process. For him, I want to go ahead and knock some more coons down to him, really rinse and repeat the process in him. That way I can get a consistent get consistency out of him before I start go ahead and recutting him. I am leaning towards probably comp hunting him. It's not something that I'm super familiar with or something that I've done a whole lot. I'm also in the works of maybe trying to start my own league for solo hunters, which is going to be a whole process in itself. But today's video, what I want to talk about, guys, is I want to talk about getting a secondhand dog. Now, everybody has gotten a secondhand dog or knows somebody that's gotten a secondhand dog, and somebody's talked this dog up, and then they got the dog and the dog's a dud, or the dog doesn't hunt the way that the person says it did. So we're going to talk about maybe the process of going through and purchasing a secondhand dog, and the process of just getting a secondhand dog that you really don't have a choice to make. Maybe somebody give you a dog. Now, I myself, I have gotten, I don't know how many secondhand dogs. People fool with them and get them up to where they can't, further their training, and then they want to get rid of them. You get these dogs in all kinds of conditions. You can get them in, really bad condition to where they're super scared, super timid. These are the kind of dogs that I'm kind of used to working with, which, when we're talking in the solo setting, dogs are so much more sensitive to training and handling and doing things incorrectly, and one hiccup for a dog that's in the woods with dogs can remedy itself in a minute or two just by being around the other dogs. Now, when you get into a solo dog, a dog that has no other dogs to take cues from, when we mess up that dog or we get a little hiccup in that dog's training, it could be a month-long process. It can be a 2-month-long process, and it could really prolong getting that worked out of that dog. So when I talk about training coon dogs, I talk about making mistakes when training coon dogs, I'm more directly speaking to dogs that are solo trained, that are solo handled, that don't go with other dogs. Because to guys that have dogs in the woods, when we cut the dog and we have an issue with the dog, it's kind of just overlooked, and it kind of works itself out, and it's not no big deal. But when you're the only person there and you're the only dog, and that's the only dog there, when you go in the woods and that dog don't strike, then it's a big issue. When you go to the dog won't tree, it's a big issue. So all these things can just snowball effect into getting a secondhand dog, right? Or us creating a secondhand dog. So number one, I'm not a big proprietor of second-handing dogs. I do not like to pass around dogs. I think that is one of the last resorts available when it comes down to second-handing a dog. That I really don't like to do that. Now, receiving second-hand dogs, I'm completely fine with that, because 9 times out of 10, it takes a little figuring on the dog and a little bit of judging that dog and taking it in the woods and seeing what it's really about, and before we can just move on in the process. And like, I've been through so many of them, I've been through so many hounds, that it's kind of just those things that you see here in that dog, here in this dog, here in that dog, and it kind of gives you a good idea. Well, anyway, when we're picking up a secondhand dog, number one, we want to make sure that we are getting from somebody credible. Even if we don't have the opportunity to get from somebody credible, we want to really consider what we're getting ourselves into. We want as much video, as much documentation, photos, etc. We want to know paperwork. We want to have all that figured out before we go ahead and pay money for a dog. Now, a video, when I want video evidence for a secondhand dog, I want two pieces of video. I want a video of a dog striking a coon on the ground, and I want a video of a dog treeing a coon in a tree. Whether it's a cage, dead, however, we just want to know that the dog is capable of barking on the ground and barking on the tree. Those two things right there will make sure that you at least have a dog that has that much capacity to do that. So we're not taking a dog that he has no evidence that the dog even does anything. Running with other dogs doesn't mean it runs by itself. That's a whole nother process in itself of getting a dog to go in the woods by itself without help, and they really tend to not want to go by themselves if they've been with other dogs. So that could be another thing. You don't want to pick up a Me Too dog that doesn't know anything outside of other dogs. So definitely want the video evidence of them barking on the ground and barking on a tree with dead coon, cage coon, live coon, whatever it may be. I myself, it's okay to see them treeing with other dogs. That means that it will do that in some capacity, but just because it'll do it with other dogs doesn't mean it'll do it by itself. Now, another thing too is a lot of these dogs are either, green as grass or just need to be hunted or whatever the case may be. The bottom line is, unless somebody is actually really in the business of breeding dogs and really in the business of, selling lots of dogs, the chances that you get a green dog are so low that you can throw that right out the window. And a lot of guys will cop out to that because they have fooled with the dog, haven't liked what they've seen, and then pass it off as green, even though them fooling with that dog is no longer green, and it's been through whatever process they try to put it through. So, like, we want to make sure that we know what stage the dog is at in training. We want to know for a fact how green the dog is. We want to know for a fact how many times the dog's been in the woods, how many times has he done multitudes of things. And the biggest proprietor of this is we want to look at paperwork, we want to look at lineage. This is a big indicator of how a dog will perform. With that being said, it's not all about the paperwork. There's on-paper dogs out here that will smoke circles around any dog going right now. But so the papers thing is just a good indicator. I wouldn't trust papers for a solid fact. Another thing that you really want to do is you want to get in the woods with that dog and you want to see if that dog is actually doing what you want it to do. So if we get in the woods with a dog, we know that it strikes coons on the ground, we know that it strikes coons in a tree, and we get it in the woods and it actually strikes, and maybe it comes up with a tree but it's coming up slick, something like that. These are all things that we can work with. We want a dog that we can work with and build from, and we want to have a stable platform and good information to go ahead and move on with that. So some dogs, the prior owner, they have fooled with that dog and fooled with that dog and fooled with that dog, and they just can't get what they want out of it. You get that dog and you just leave it set up, and once it sets up for long enough, it's ready to be worked with again, and then you can instill the whole thing. But my recommendation to everybody out there, if you get a second-hand dog, the first thing that you want to do when you get it into your possession and back to your house, I mean, you can cut it in the woods. If you want to cut it in the woods, that's optional. But what you want to do is you want to get it to the house, and then you want to put it through your training, and you want to see what the dog does with your training. So when we're taking a dog, obviously we want to see the dog in the woods, and if it's far enough along and we like what we see, we can go ahead and hunt that dog and see what it comes up with. But what we want to do is we want to put the dog through our own training process and make sure that we get what we want out of the dog before we put it back in the woods. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you have a dog that don't know you don't know the dog, and when you throw a dog in the woods that's been fooled with before, it's going to give you everything that that person put into that dog. Instead of when we go into the woods, it's going to be everything that we put into the dog. So we want to make sure that we are putting work into our second-hand dogs prior to actually really hunting them and getting into the flow of dropping a dog in the woods and cutting a dog in the woods a lot, because the prior owner may have missed one click of the notch to get the dog to where it needs to be, and when you go through your process, you can click it with that dog. And a lot of times some dogs will hunt for some people and they won't hunt for other people. So I mean, a dog that won't hunt for this guy for whatever the reason may be, maybe he don't trust this guy, maybe he's been whooped on a tree too much, or whatever the case may be, and he gets around somebody new and he wants to do it all, and it's kind of shaky in that sense. But we definitely want to have good documentation. We want to make sure our paperwork's in line before we get the dog. we want to check the dog out in the woods, or decide that we like what we see with the information and skip this, and then we want to get to the house, and we want to, no matter how far along this dog is, we want to put it through our process of getting a dog to the tree and treeing. I recommend using the How to Train a Solo Coon Dog video process that I have here on YouTube. You guys can check that out. I'll drop a link down in the description. And what we're going to do after that is we're just going to shove it in the woods, and then no matter how far along this dog is, now we know we have a just need to be hunted dog. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for subscribing and hanging out. Hope you guys like the content, and keep them treed, boys.